Welcome to the Kaala Evans Show. This platform is uniquely designed to educate and empower individuals of all walks of life as we converse with experts of various industries. These intellectual conversations are designed to inspire and uplift members of our culture and society, collectively gaining knowledge and information dedicated to our human experience. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Kaala Evans Show. I'm so excited today. We have a very special guest. Mr. Thomas Pierre is here with us, everyone. Welcome, Mr. Pierre. We're so excited to have you on the show for this fantastic episode about music and education. I want to give a little background about Mr. Pierre before we jump into today's interview. So, Thomas Pierre is a national board certified music teacher, certified ORFF educator, and an approved movement teacher educator for the American ORFF Schoolwerk Association. Mr. Pierre is also a 2020 CMA National Music Teachers of Excellence National Award recipient and Maryland Music Educators Outstanding Music Teacher. He has earned the Certificate of Study from the Changing Education Through the Arts program via the Kennedy Center in DC. Through the Arts program, a native of the Bronx, New York, he attended the famous Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and the Performing Arts. Mr. Pierre is the president of the Middle Atlantic chapter of the American ORFF Schoolwerk Association and served on the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee and Restructuring Ad Hoc Committee of AOSA. Mr. Pierre currently teaches in Prince George's County, Maryland, and throughout the years has led workshops around the U.S. and internationally, providing support to children and adults that aids in closing the achievement gap in urban education through arts and education and arts integration. Welcome to the show, Mr. Pierre. So excited to have you today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I met Mr. Pierre in our PG County education circles. I've had the pleasure for knowing him for a couple of years now. And I asked him to be on the show because the work that he's doing is so unique. And in my recent travels overseas, I got to learn a little bit more about what ORFF is and visiting a chamber orchestra event in Austria. So enough about me. Ms. Pierre, thank you for being here so much. That was a very extensive intro. But if you wanted to give us a little bit more background into your journey into education, that would be fantastic.
Well, thank you again for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share. I think the work that we do as music educators, especially with ORFF Schulwerk, is very important. And a lot of people don't know how it just plays an integral role in shaping a child's, just whole being. I really started music, the love of music. I can't really remember. I was thinking about music education last week. And when I was in the 5th grade, I had an opportunity to sing in the Glee Club. And I really enjoyed singing in the choir. But my middle school music teacher, Mr. McCants, I think he came to the basketball court and took a group of us off the basketball court and told us to come to rehearsal. I didn't audition. I just was sitting in the auditorium after school in middle school with a whole bunch of middle school students singing in his choir. We performed songs with 8 parts, 8-part harmony. He was instrumental in preparing me to audition for high school. And I really attribute my musical journey to Mr. McCann. And of course, in my family, my aunt, who's a singer, and my god sister, who's a singer. But middle school was really that place. And then I went to high school and I auditioned for Howard University and switched my major because I just didn't want to take music for another 4 years the way I took music in high school. But I just continued taking music classes, even majoring in communication. So I could have just majored in music, had a double major, but I declared music therapy as my minor. And I worked many different places and Um, to make a long story short, about 20, 25 years ago, I had the opportunity to interview for a middle school in Washington, D.C. And the vice principal, she wasn't the vice principal yet, but she was interviewing for the vice principal position. And she sang in my choir at Howard University. I founded the Howard University Community Choir, used to be Residence Hall Choir.
Oh, wow.
And she told the principal, I have the music teacher for you. And I interviewed at the school, and that was it. I've been teaching music ever since and growing, and my journey has been rich. But I really attribute that the portion of me practicing with my peers in music as a choir director at Howard University and becoming a national board certified teacher. Just these things poured into my life, and now I'm pouring into the lives of students in Prince George's County and in community at large.
So, in hearing about your musical journey, even
Yes.
as a student early on, you elected to take a lot of classes, even in switching your major to communications. So, how would you say that your zeal to learn early on and taking those classes and educating yourself has attributed to your career now as an educator?
Oh, I think it's so many moving parts. Music, Mr. McCann's planted that seed, and so
Mm.
music has been there. I've been just wrapped around music and a wide variety of popular cultural and historical genres. The love of education and the love of teaching. Teaching is my gift. I
Mm.
didn't realize it until years later, but teaching is a gift from God. And I always want to, just enhance my effectiveness in teaching. So I took a lot of classes. My mom, when she was alive, she was always in school taking classes. So that was a seed. My I'm in a family of educators, and so I guess just around me, education has always been around me, and I always yearn to reach the pinnacle of success in teaching. I love teaching.
So, in understanding that, I want to talk a little bit about ORFF because before last year, I had no idea what ORFF was, and it's a beautiful thing. The fact that the county is offering this to selected students who have a special performing arts knack or gift or talent, and you hone in on that talent from the ORFF perspective. So, can you tell us what ORFF is, what the origin of it is?
I'm glad you asked. Well, Orff is named after the composer Karl Orff, and many of you know Karl Orff for the Carmina Burana.
Mm.
Karl Orff, and people forget about Gunhild Capemont. And she is a pioneer. But Orff is an approach to teaching music where children learn through singing, moving, playing, and creating. And I say children, but it's any learner.
Mm.
Um, you can use Orff with children with varying abilities. Orff Schulwerk approach to teaching with adults, the elderly. You can use it with pre-K. You can use it with choir. It's an approach to teaching, and what children do instinctively is sing and
Mm.
play, and move and create. So the Orff approach, encompasses all of those, and children create and they make music in school. And many people think when they think of Orff, they think of the xylophone. So growing up, if you remember playing a xylophone and a
Yes.
recorder and a drum, those are Orphy things, if you will. But really, it's an approach to teaching. It's a way to go about teaching music where you tap into students' creativity through what they instinctively do.
So, through the ORFF program, how does that tie into, I guess, say, furthering education or higher education? For example, I have a middle schooler at home who is in the ORFF program and loving it.
It taps into multiple facets of her talents as a pianist, as a performer, as an actress, and as a singer. So, how would you speak to a parent like me who has a student who is talented in multiple areas and you're teaching the ORFF method? How can a student tap more into their innate gifts through the ORFF program in higher education and beyond?
Well, the ORF approach allows students the, you know, you the ability, if you will, to be creative.
Mm.
And so we sing in ORF, we speak, we move, we play instruments and we play games. And ORF surrounds itself with multicultural, music from a global perspective.
Mhm.
You're listening, so you could bring a book to life through an ORF ensemble. An ORF
Yes.
ensemble is a troupe. It's like a drama troupe that sings and moves and plays. And you can use found sounds, rocks outside, soda bottles. You can use rattles. You can use traditional and non-traditional instruments. So with the middle school or the high school or any student, that student is learning, skills, life skills. They're learning how to create, to use their creativity and their analytical thinking skills and their listening skills and their presentation skills. All of these things, it seems like it comes by default. Many of my former students, they're now teachers. They're doing so many wonderful things, not only teaching, but leading in organizations. And whenever I speak to, some of my students, they attribute what they learn in what they've learned in class. It just
Mhm.
helped them to become a more effective leader.
That's incredible. I want to go back a little bit to when you talked about the origin of ORF, understanding that a lot of it is European based. I want to talk about some of your travels because ORF has taken you all over the world. So, if you want to talk a little bit about some of your work overseas in Europe and some of your work on the continent, I'd love to hear more about that and how that shaped your musical career journey.
Well, I thank you. I attribute, my success, of course, to God. I
Amen.
thank God for enabling me to meet people, Doug Goodkin, Sophia, Lopez Ibor, um, James Harden, my mentor, Judith, Judith Thompson, Bothwell Thompson, IJ, all of these people, and I can name quite a few. I don't want to miss any, so I want to stop ahead of time. But
Of course.
um, just my interaction with these individuals at the American ORFF Schulwerk, which is the national organization, which gave me pretty much, my start, um, giving workshops in the United States, different states, providing workshops for music teachers in ORFF chapters all around the country. One thing leads to another, taking trips. I took a trip with, ORFF Afrique, Doug Goodkin and Kofi Bolongo. And Kofi is from Ghana. And every 2 years, there's a trip to Ghana, to a place in Ghana right across from Togo. And so I went there for the first time, and then I visited again,
Wow.
and I was able to make music there with people in the village and the children. And I went
Wow.
to Spain. Sophia and her organization in Spain invited me to teach teachers in Spain. And I went to the music village several times, and in Finland, Estonia, uh, this past summer, Croatia. Many opportunities have come from being an ORFF educator. And if I can say this, although the Schuwerk approach is a European approach, or we find that wherever country I visited, I see ORFF. You know, here in the United States, people playing their tambourine in church, that's ORFF.
That's incredible. I was going to ask how it ties into some of the work that you're doing right now. From the church perspective, we might need to do a little collaboration, but I'll wait till the end for that. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more now about the work that you're doing in the national organization. I know that you're leading a DE&I initiative within a committee within that organization. So can you tell us a little bit about that work as well?
Okay, we had a DEI or DEIA committee, you know, through the American ORFF Schuwerk, and they did some revamping of the committee. So now their focus is that committee no longer exists as it was, but members of the committee are on other committees and subcommittees, making sure that the work that AOSA does is they're always looking through a DEIA perspective.
Okay.
I'm hoping that at some point they will bring that back as a committee, but that's my opinion. But in the local chapter of the Middle Atlantic chapter, it's called, I served as the DEI director or DEI coordinator, and I served in that capacity for 2 or 3 years, and then vice president. Now I'm the president, but we still have that DEI, and every few weeks we have a book study. It's an ongoing book study. We're reading the book by Dr. Courageous Conversations About Race.
Wow.
Courageous Conversations About Race, and by Dr. Singleton. And we've been having that book study. We've had that for at least, ever since I was the DEI chair. We have in our chapter, which I invite anyone, if you have any music and dance background or just want to learn more about it, it's elemental. I invite you to join. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I have to say, unfortunately, many people are not ready for it.
Okay.
But it is bittersweet. It's rewarding.
I can imagine the challenges that you see in a program like this, trying to ensure that people of color, specifically Black Americans, are exposed to the arts this way and are still afforded the same opportunities as others that are absent of color in these particular spaces. Well, I want to pivot a little bit. I want to go a little bit deeper and talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you have in your role, because you're esteemed, you have years long experience, you have all the accolades, all the commas, pluses after your last name. But I'm sure that as a Black man in this field, you still encounter challenges on a daily basis. So do you want to speak to a little bit about some of those challenges and some of the things that you're working through to overcome at this time?
I think the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges for me, is microaggressions. And if you read Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, he doesn't use microaggression. He uses racial abuse. It's subtle. It can be blatant. And that's a struggle for many of us. And I can speak for myself right now, because there are people who may call themselves allies that may not know or may not believe or understand the things that they say or do that is bias, and that's racial abuse, and it's a warfare. I've even had sometimes it goes and comes, a complex about myself. It's all in my mind. This person's
Right.
really not being racist. Some of my Black counterparts might even tell me themselves. It's really a courageous conversation for everyone, not just for people of color, but for white people as well. And is just as stressful for me to have that courageous conversation.
Understood.
And sometimes I notice that people would rather not have that conversation and just have the peace of mind of just saying this too shall pass. And so that's the conundrum. Like, what should I fight, or should I let it pass? When should I choose my battles? But if you're listening, um, I invite you to help me normalize, addressing microaggressions or verbal abuse. Help me to make that normal. So as long as we are normalizing what's right, then people will catch on.
Absolutely. And I applaud your efforts as a leader in your various organizations within the county now to initiate these courageous conversations, but also to be transparent enough and vulnerable enough to talk about the impact that some of these microaggressions and this racial abuse has impacted you directly, but also the way that you're pushing through and then teaching the students on a day-to-day basis how to thrive and love and move past all of those things through art. And that's beautiful. And I commend you for that, because you've taught my child, and I'm a huge fan. Hence the reason you're on the show. So I want to do something a little bit different. I've never done this on a show before, but it's my show. We can do whatever I want. So you talked about how ORFF is everywhere. And, I'm a PK myself, so I grew up in the Black church. So how would you feel about leading us in a song? And I'm just going to follow you ORFF style. I'm putting you on the spot. We did not rehearse this.
Okay.
Come on, Mr. Pierre, let's do this.
Okay, so I can clap,
Okay.
and you can clap with me, and I can sing something like, glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. And you can sing, glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. And if I walked in a church, or if I walked in, sometimes I do workshops, or sometimes I talk about the history, development, and contemporary aspect of gospel music. I do some things with Gullah Gospel. That's, how it started. When there was no drums, someone picked up a tree branch and said, tap, 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 glory, glory. So that rhythm is half of, tap, 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 hallelujah, since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah, since I laid my burden down.
All right. Mr. Thomas Pierre, ladies and gentlemen.
You're also ready, right?
Yes, we are. So I want to hear a little bit more about what you have coming up. How can people follow you? Where are your next events? How can we get involved? We're going to share everything on the channel too, but I want to hear a little bit about what you have coming on. I know you have a fundraiser coming up.
Yes. Well, I want to say that my Instagram is Afro ORFF. It's right by my first name, Thomas. It's Afro ORFF. And I have Afro ORFF. It's evolving. You'll see more of that in the future. So that's my Instagram, Afro ORFF. You could send a message and say you saw me on the Kaala Evans Show, and I know who you are. And the American ORFF Schulwerk Middle Atlantic chapter in DC, the DC chapter of ORFF, is our nickname. We're known by MAC AOSA. So it's M as in Mary, AC hyphen AOSA. And you can, if you want to become a member, you can see our membership page. You can join us. You could send an email to me at MAC AOSA reminder. So there's no hyphen. It's MAC, M as in Mary, AOSA reminder gmail.com. And we're raising money for scholarships for our teachers to take levels or to take professional developments, all so they can impact the lives of the students that we teach. And we teach Black and brown children here in our nation's capital and surrounding areas. So it's very important for teachers to have an approach so that they can have various ways to teach children and meet their learning modalities. So, and we have workshops coming up. And if you send an email and you want to know the workshops, there's a workshop in January, February, March, and April. April, we have the famous Rollo Dilworth, and he is an African-American composer. He works at Temple University. He composes music, and he's a presenter and does clinics all over the world. And he is my friend. I met him years ago at a conference, and we became good friends. And he's a humble servant, and he will be, I believe it's April 26th, that last Saturday in April. Come and join us. Come and join our journey and be a part of, again, be a part of MAC. Even if you don't feel like you're a musician, you don't have to be a music educator. I know it's a music education organization, but if you love music, you want to make music, you want to teach music, you may teach a nursery. There's some kindergarten teachers who are ORFF teachers. There are art teachers and dance teachers who are ORFF teachers. So we would love to have you. And one more thing for the high school teachers and middle school teachers, using your ORFF approach is the best thing you can do for your classes. Sometimes you're teaching a general music class in high school and middle school and you don't know what to do. Come to our workshops. They would love you. You would be the rock star of your school.
Absolutely, yes. Mr. Pierre, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your experience with us. What a pleasure. I hope you learned something today on the Kaala Evans Show. I know that I did. It was a pleasure to collaborate with you a little bit on the music tip. Okay, get me back in my music bag. I appreciate that. All right, family. All of the information that Mr. Pierre shared will be available to you online in further detail, so you can stay connected with him and all of the fantastic work that he's doing in the music community. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Pierre, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Continue to share the Kaala Evans Show online. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, we're there. Thank you for being a part of my community. Until next time, family.
Thank you so much for joining me for another extraordinary conversation today on the Kaala Evans Show. I invite you to stay engaged with me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Please follow me at The Kaala Evans Show on all social media and podcast platforms. More love, more life, more blessings. Until we meet again.